you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give into the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Good morning, folks. It's June 5th, Friday, Freewheeling Friday. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am the People's Pundit, Rich Barrett. You guys can follow me on Twitter right here at Peoples_Pundit if you don't already. If you don't see my eating grin over here, then I don't know what to tell you. This is a good morning, man. I'm in a great mood. I don't know about you guys. We're going to try to watch Trump today. We'll see. You know, I'm going to try to do it the way I show you normally in the corner of the screen. Maybe we can tune in to Trump a little bit. He's always late anyway. I knew he would be, but he kind of threw in that press conference at the last minute, and I tweeted to him, "Can't you push it back an hour, man?" Yeah, we'll try to go in on, try to peek in and see what he has to say about the jobs report, which we're going to go over here in a second. I am just dying over here. And then we're going to wrap up Pennsylvania, the results in Pennsylvania, which I think we need to talk about, because I think think Joe Biden has a problem. Okay. And then we're going to also wrap up the series this week on voter fraud, which they're going to need, if there's 2.5 million jobs created already, they're going to need them. All right. And they're going to need all those absentee ballots, because the vote in Pennsylvania, I don't want to jump ahead of myself because I really want to start with the jobs report, but the vote in Pennsylvania, if I was Team Biden, I would be very, very concerned. He has base fracture. And it was a very poor showing, even compared to Hillary Clinton in 2016, which will show you, put up against an incumbent president who essentially had a not competitive primary. So while I look at Michigan and I look at Wisconsin, and Trump has plenty to worry about, Pennsylvania was shockingly strong. And I think anybody who tells you otherwise is full of crap, or just trying to make themselves feel better. I will say this, it's Freewheeling Friday, so I'm not in a suit like I usually am. I got an early Father's Day present. You guys want to see it? All right, look at this. greatest farter ever. That's my son. He's a wise guy, right? I got one for my daughter too, and it was like a father's shirt, but I got this from my son. He's a real wise guy. If you guys want to let me know when Trump comes on, we'll try to pop in, just give you a heads up, but I want to try to do the jobs report first. Let's do that. Okay. So the U.S. economy added what is absolutely a record, 2.5 million jobs in the month of May. If you guys watch the show, then I didn't expect this, or I was hoping if we were going to see the economy recover quickly, I was hoping to see this in like July, and was being realistic, maybe August. And then the last initial jobless claims report showed what was a little bit of maybe contraction in the labor force. So, this is fantastic news because, look, it's going to take some time to recover everything that we have lost. But anybody who tells you that we didn't do this quicker than anybody thought is a liar, and we're going to show you that right now. Look at the 1 year, by the way. You can't tell from the chart until you really zoom in on the 1 year. Okay, we had that sharp spike, and now it was always a difference. The economy always comes back. It was always a difference between, would it be a prolonged recovery like we saw under Barack Obama and the Great Recession, or would it be a sharp bounce back because this was an unnatural event, an ahistorical event, and it would be more akin, like Furman was warning Democrats about, like a hurricane or the BP oil spill, where we have regional growth issues and we see large spikes in declines in gross domestic product and large spikes in the unemployment rate, and then large spikes in recovery. And obviously, if we're seeing this now, there's just a good indication that we're going to bounce back a lot quicker than anybody thought. And this is why Furman warned all of the Democrats. I just saw an attack ad from Joe Biden this morning before I left my house to go to the office. I just saw an attack ad from Joe Biden and one from a group of Fat George Conway's crew, which is, Trump told us he was going to look out for the working man. Now there's 40 plus million who applied for initial jobless claims, unemployment benefits, and the streets are rioting. This is Trump's America. And Furman was trying to, and Barack Obama, say what you will about him, had some very smart people around him, political people. They're economists were typically not. But Furman is an exception. And he was saying, look, don't do this yet. Wait, hold your fire, because you're going to look stupid if this economy starts posting records. And this is a record. This has now, not only it broke, it smashed Ronald Reagan's record. Fourfold, more than fourfold. It smashed it, right? More than almost fourfold. All right. Okay, so let's go through and read this. Hit me up, producer, if Trump starts, okay? And then I will try to get in. We'll try to tune into Trump. But the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported the U.S. economy added 2.5 million jobs, the largest gain ever recorded, and the unemployment rate fell to 3.3% in May. The historic gain in jobs and decrease in the rate come after historic declines due to the mitigation efforts to slow the spread of coronavirus. The forecasts. This is what I wanted to get to, because these people are going to try to BS their way through today. The forecast for total non-farm payrolls, which is the headline jobs number, they range from a low of negative 11 million, loss of 11 million, to a high of negative 3.5 million. Nobody predicted job gains for the month of May. Nobody. The consensus was nearly 8 million. The forecast for the unemployment rate ranged from a low of 17.5% to a high of 20%. The consensus was just under that, 19.8. The labor force participation rate increased by 0.6 of a percentage point, which is a solid increase for labor force participation, to 60.3. We need to get back up to that 63 number, which Barack Obama never reached. And that is a critical threshold, and we made it under Trump. We actually ticked over it. The important thing was whether or not we could hold it. All right. That followed a decrease of 2.5%. So it does show you we have some way to go. I mean, we're not trying to, overstate this, but that's not what the importance is. Not whether the question was not whether we could recover all of this in 1 month. That was never going to happen. All right. The question was whether or not we would start recovering now. And the ISM PMI showed that this thing was trying to recover. The economy overall was trying to recover. Manufacturing increased, though it remained in contraction. And we'll show you why in a second. We'll show you how much, what does that mean for the labor market? But it is coming back. Total employment, as measured by the household survey, rose by 3.8 million in May to 137.2 million, following what was the largest decline ever in April. Okay, so here are the civilian labor force participation rates. This was expected to go down again. I mean, this is like unbelievable. The forecast range from a low of 59.9 to a high of 60.4. All right. So while some people did see, roughly in the ballpark where we ended up, they were out in left field, is my point. The consensus was 60 flat. After what was an 8.7 percentage point decline in April, the less cited, but really it's equally important, employment population ratio gained 1.5 percentage points to 52.8%. Why does that matter? Look, again, under Barack Obama, it was a methodological gimmick to watch the unemployment rate fall. People were giving up on the American dream. They were giving up on trying to find a job. When the unemployment rate falls, but participation and the employment population ratio are rising, that is a truly strong labor market, not a gimmick, not a ploy, which is what we saw under Barack Obama. And by the way, people would say all the time that basically we're not going to hit 63% anymore. We're not going to hit that threshold. Under Barack Obama, there were just too many people retiring, the baby boomer generation. This is a population problem, not a labor market problem. That was BS, like a lot of the excuses. And this thing is trying, the labor market was so tight, it's trying to come back. This kind of job report makes me like really proud to be an American after watching a week of crazy riots in the street and the country being torn apart. Nobody ever in the history of civilization can find an economy like this. And it's the Protestant ethic, whether you're Protestant or not. I don't mean it like that. If you part of like a wave of even ethnic Catholics that assimilated, Irish, Italian, you assimilated to what America is known for, which is the Protestant ethic, the spirit of capitalism. Nobody should ever underestimate the American worker, the American small business owner, American ingenuity. This is what has made us great. Economics is all. It is. All right. Look at construction. It recovered nearly half of its losses from April. About 1 million jobs, just under 1 million jobs, were lost in the month of April, and just under 500,000 were gained in May. That's a huge bounce back. That's incredible. Much of the gain did come in trade contractors, 325,000, roughly, and the rest was roughly evenly split. Within that was evenly split between residential and non-residential. And if you watch the new residential construction report and construction spending, both of which we cover on PBD, that doesn't surprise you, because actually the losses were revised to show they weren't as great. They were bad, but they weren't as great as previously expected before. And now they're strong. The recovery is stronger than expected, obviously. Job gains did come in construction of buildings, 105,000, largely in residential, right? So you'd know that from the new residential construction numbers if you follow PPD. If you get some data for your dollar and you subscribe to the best data journalism website in the world. Manufacturing employment rose by 225,000, evenly split between durable and non-durable goods. Excellent. In April, manufacturing employment fell by 1.3 million. So that should make some sense to you about why ISM showed it was recovering, but it wasn't, totally back yet, but it was recovering, and that too was a shocker. It beat the forecast. Nobody expected manufacturing to bounce back that quickly. But about 2/3 of the loss from last month did come from the durable goods component, which is, for people who don't know, durable goods are long-lasting manufactured goods. Airplanes, appliances, things that are meant to last 3 years or more. All right. Within durable goods, employment gains in May were led by motor vehicles and parts, 28,000, which also led in losses. So that's good. Fabricated metal products, 25,000, and machinery, 23,000. Within non-durable goods, job gains occurred in plastics and rubber products and food manufacturing. No shocker there. In May, this is another great one. In May, average hourly earnings for all employees on private non-farm payrolls fell by 29 cents to 29.75. There's a reason for this. Just follow along. Following a gain of 1.35 in April. And for workers or non-supervisory workers, private sector production, they fell by less. That is very indicative of the Trump economy. All right, where wages have been growing at solid rates, but they were growing at even more solid rates for workers, non-supervisory and private sector. So not government workers and people who are in management positions. So it was a working class economy. All right. And they fell by less. So that's good. Why did they fall? Because so many, it offset it, and they get into it here. The decrease in average hourly earnings largely reflected job gains among lower paid workers, because in April, most of the losses were in lower paid industries and sectors, right? Which naturally results in downward pressure on wage growth. Year over year, though, wages have grown 7.8%. And last month, they grew 3.8%. Barack Obama never saw wage growth above 3%. Never hit it. In fact, wage growth for the first time in the third quarter of 2018 grew by 3% for the first time since before the Great Recession. There was never wage growth like this under Barack Obama. And even during Trump's worst record months, their wage growth is stronger, far stronger than Barack Obama. I didn't have the time before we started the show to look, but if you're a subscriber, you know this. We were tracking the consecutive months of wage. You know what I just said is true. And we were tracking the consecutive months of wage growth at or above 3%. And we were at 19 consecutive months before coronavirus kicked in. We'll go back and look now. I want to say this is the 21st consecutive month, all of which being under Donald Trump. I want to say that, but I want to make sure before I go and I look. Look, Trump isn't even there yet. So, I knew he'd be late. Maybe he saw my tweet and he's hanging out. Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks for hanging out. And then maybe we'll get through this whole damn thing. I doubt it. I'd be happy if I can get this one segment in, and then maybe we can watch him talk a little bit about the jobs report himself. He's going to do a victory lap. He deserves it. Also, important here, private, non-farm payrolls actually rose by 3.1 million. The reason why total non-farm payrolls came in at 2.5 is because of government workers losing jobs. Okay? They offset the gain in the private sector. Why? Well, think back to all of these Democratic governors that either just flat out forced government workers to go home or cut by minimum standards, like 50% Andrew Cuomo started out with in New York City. Non-essential government workers were cut by 50% in the middle of, I believe it was April. And then before the month was out, he killed the rest. Or March, excuse me. It was March. So there are people in the government who were forced to go home who have not yet come back yet. All right, just so everybody knows too, average hourly earnings, which grew by 3.8. And we'll put that story up a little bit later, right? We'll go back and look. I just wanted, again, to make sure I have never been fact checked. Nothing on PPD has ever been fact checked. And that's why. It's not about the speed at which you get it out. It's about being accurate. Most of our readers anyway work or have something to do. It's not like they're looking at 8:31 to see when the jobs report comes out. So that we do things very differently than the rest of the media world. But the forecast for average hourly earnings this month was they range from a low of -1% to a high of 3.9. So it came in right about at the high end of the forecast range. Now, for year over year wage growth, that ranged from a low of 3.3% to a high of 9.3. And that came in, just to recap, at 7.8%. All right. So what does this tell us? All right. Well, if I don't think I have to put this up. I don't think I have to regurgitate this a million times. This is a lot faster than anybody expected. If you watch this show, when we've been talking about how the economy impacts elections, I said, we don't know what's going on with the economy yet. We don't know what's going on with coronavirus yet. We don't know what's going on with race relations yet. Anyone who tells you they know how this election is going to shake out is full of crap. I got to play whack-a-fraud every day on Twitter. There's some new expert who I never heard of who pretends to have some track record nobody knows about. And they see an election cycle in which they think the incumbent is doomed. So they'll come in with their little electoral maps they got from Tableau. They'll never tell you what goes into the model like we do. So you can't figure out whether or not my rating should be different. It's very transparent the way we do it. And they see an opportunity to make their bones. Where if they call an incumbent president's loss, they can later in 2022 and 2024 claim that they knew what they were talking about. Let me just tell you, I am the only person who polled publicly both the national numbers and the state numbers and put up an election model. I don't remember any of these people in November of 2016. I remember sitting with my very tight-knit team and my wife and having a coronary over whether or not I was going to be right. I remember when results from Wisconsin, which was the first to fall, stunning me. I remember telling Larry Schweiker, I'm wrong in Wisconsin. I'm wrong, Larry. He's going to lose Wisconsin. I don't know why my numbers show this. I'm wrong. I think I'm done. Oh, this is going to be bad. It was lonely. All of these people out of nowhere. So-and-so, called Donald Trump's victory in 2016. Really? Where the hell were you? Where were you? Why didn't you put your numbers out there for all to see and all to criticize? I'm the only one with emails from executives at Nielsen telling me to hang in there. Be strong. You're right. We know you're right. I'm the only one with emails from people at Google Consumer Surveys who said, we stopped running them in late October because they were too favorable to Trump. Don't let them pressure you. Hold the line. I don't remember anybody else. I remember taking in enormous flack, being called all sorts of names. Anyway, I had to get that off my chest because this is driving me nuts. But reverse it. And what I'm trying to say is, when we were talking about what this means for the election, I was telling you it has to be that by the end of the summer, early fall, we're putting up big jobs numbers. That is what it would take for Trump to be competitive in some of these states. People better see it and feel it. They better feel it because they're not going to get GDP numbers that tell them the economy is growing again before the election. That is done. Those numbers will not come out until the election is decided. And I told you that it had to be by July, August, in the fall, that it was so strong. 1.5 million, 1.4 million, I said. It has to be strong enough where people feel it. And he looks like a rock star, like he pulled us out of the doldrums. Folks, it's May. This report is for May. I think anybody who tells you how this election is shaking out, think they know how this is going to go, they're full of crap. They have no idea. They have no idea. Because 6 months, first of all, is an incredibly long time in normal politics. We are in an era that is by far anything but normal. Normality is rare. It's a rare gem. Well, I long for it. I long for it. So it's 10:26. Looks like Trump still hasn't really stepped out to the microphone yet. That's good news. Trump is at 48 in Rasmussen today. And I'm also allowed to say, because I talked to them earlier before we went on, they showed me some of their raw data that came in. And Republicans would be making an enormous mistake kowtowing to the radical elements that are throwing bottles in the street, claiming they want to defund police. The law-abiding Black community was among the strongest supporters of tough-on-crime bills during the 1990s. If you think that law-abiding Black Americans, Black Americans, Republicans have no chance on winning those the other groups that are in the streets that want to defund the police, that have all these radical ideas no majority in America supports. They have no chance to win those votes. Zero. They would be making an enormous mistake to even try to placate or appease them. This is an opportunity to appeal and speak to those who are law-abiding, that do support a police presence in their neighborhood, that do support having more cops to make their neighborhood safe. They're not going to win those wards. They're not going to win those precincts that are fueling these cries. Listen to George Floyd's memorial yesterday, his service in Minneapolis. Who did they invite to that service? The Reverend Al Sharpton. If these services were an opportunity to unite, and they would not have invited somebody like him. Now is the time to speak to Black America that actually is receptive to the message. And that's where Trump in Rasmussen's at 48% today. You know what's driving that? An increase in Black support. That's what drove his pop. 20% who strongly approve. Almost 50% of Democrats support the military restoring order. It's overwhelming. They would make a huge mistake. It would be a huge mistake for Republicans to allow the media, who doesn't represent anybody outside of the fringe of these groups, to convince them that those are the people they have to placate. First of all, there is no appeasing them. They want what they want. There is no appeasing them. I was going to save the laugh at the fool segment until the end, but we don't have it yet. All right, well then I'll wait anyway. It doesn't look like we got it, but de Blasio, and we covered this on PPD, you guys can look at it. Bill de Blasio goes to the memorial they're holding in Brooklyn yesterday, and as soon as they saw him, they booed the hell out of him. The only reason why they stopped temporarily booing and screaming and shouting to resign is because his wife took the stage. Only then, and then as soon as he tried to take the microphone back, the Reverend had to say, stop, be nice, be respectful. Has anybody tried to appease? Has anybody tried to placate more than Bill de Blasio? His own daughter was arrested the night there were riots. He's taking flack from both sides of the spectrum. Law and order Republicans and Democrats who don't want to look like they're crazy, like Andrew Cuomo, even though he basically did the same thing till all hell broke loose. he went down the same road. These are just young, idealistic people, right? Anyway, it is 10:30. You are watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm the People's Pundit, Rich Barris, and you guys can follow me on Twitter right there if you don't already, at Peoples_Pundit. To the new viewers, apparently at which there are many, don't forget to subscribe if you are watching on YouTube to the YouTube page. We are nearly at that marker, that first marker that we are trying to hit. So take a hot minute to do that. We'd love you for it. Also, don't forget to like the page People's Pundit Daily on Facebook, all right, which we neglected for a long time. And Facebook Live is a much cleaner stream than Periscope, which is where the vast, I guess, the vast majority of our viewership comes from. We're trying to scoot you guys over to YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe or Facebook Live. They're both very solid streams. And then, of course, ultimately, the best way to support the best data journalism site on the internet is to subscribe. And you can do so by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. Or just go to peoplespunditdaily.com and choose the digital subscription that suits your needs. We actually have credit tiers too, so you don't have to have a financial commitment. All right. Yeah, he's not on yet. Trump is not on yet. All right. So, yeah, let's get back to this. All right. And just really quick, thanks to all of you who have done that since we started this show. There is without question a jump in our subscriber base, and we love you for it. We can't promise you we'll cover everything. We don't have the team or the resources that the New York Times has. I can just promise you that we will cover what everything that we think is the most important, and we will do it in the best way possible. So get some data for your dollar. All right, he is on. I can't promise you this is going to work. All right, let's try this, but I can't promise you this is going to work. Well, I can promise you we'll get it. I just can't promise you that we'll get the volume in it. Let's see if we can. All I can do is ask you guys if you can hear this. Can you hear it? Can you guys hear that? Let me know. No? Nah. Well, look, we'll monitor it. That's all we can do. I'll leave them in the screen over there. If you guys are listening to them too, then you can do it kind of like a side-by-side. I can. That's causing hell of tinnitus. Boy. All right, so basically, he's going on. He's going to take a victory lap. If I don't, here's the problem with leaving Trump on. If I leave him on, then I won't be able to play some of the clips. So for this segment, while you guys are kind of like watching him, and I'm sure some of you are listening to him, I'm going to talk about Pennsylvania, okay? I thought in Pennsylvania that Donald Trump was probably looking at holding these states like first and foremost, Michigan would be the toughest state for him to hold on to. 10,000 votes. That's it. That was his margin of victory. And let me shut him up on my end because it's distracting. But 10,000 votes in Michigan. So you would generally just assume that it would be the hardest state. Yeah, the Dow is roaring. Somebody in the beginning said, you think the Dow is going to test 27 today? Well, it's more than testing it. It went through it, and it is testing resistance levels. But this is going to tell people that the economy's going to bounce back quicker than they expected. So it's going to roar today, even though the downside wasn't really hurting. It wasn't trading on data on the downside because it was kind of baked into the cake. Now we're seeing that it is, trading on data because it's signaling that this is going to bounce back faster. All right. But anyway, in order in Rich's mind of how hard it would be for Trump to keep the blue wall that he broke, it was Michigan, Pennsylvania, and then Wisconsin. And the reason why is simple. It's not just the vote that's going on in Wisconsin. That should be concerning to them, to Donald Trump and Republicans in general, until Wisconsin 7. That was a good result for them. But it was the voter file and the trend. When we first started tracking Wisconsin, and that was going back to the days of Scott Walker. It was D+2 to D+6, meaning there was a base edge in Wisconsin of anywhere between 2 and 6 points for Democrats. That was the raw voter file. For those of you who watch the voter analysis that we do, those segments in each state, we're casting the large net. And we say just exclude dead people and exclude people who move, who have recently moved. What is the partisan edge? Who has a base edge, right? Going back to that term. And the base edge was in Wisconsin, was Democrat in Wisconsin, 2 to 6 points. Over time and leading up to the 2016 election, that evaporated to like D+2 only, if they were lucky, very close to even. And since 2016, Republicans have taken an advantage. Yeah, teachers' unions, the right to work agenda, let's call it. The right to work agenda had a big impact. And I spoke, Sean Trendy and I were talking on Twitter about this. I would show him the voter file, like, look at this month, Sean. Look at this. And he actually solely attributed it. Now I'm going to show you our personal communications, but he solely attributed it to Scott Walker and the right to work agenda. But it was shocking to me because, you know what? Without going off on a tangent here, let me just take a quick look at it myself. You guys won't see it unless you want to see Trump. I don't know. You guys tell me. I'll look at it in a second. I'm going to bring it up. I'll look at it in a second. I'll give you the latest numbers because Republicans now have an edge. I mean, they were winning elections when it was an even wide net. They were winning elections. And why? Because they were carrying independents. Independents in Wisconsin are truly independent. There is a large chunk of them, about 10% of the overall electorate, which we used to call Obama Walker voters. They voted for Barack Obama twice, yet repeatedly voted to keep Scott Walker in office. In 2016, they turned into what we call now the Obama Walker Trump voter. And they voted for Barack Obama twice, Scott Walker until 2018. Some of them broke away because after a while, it's just too much to see the same name on the ballot, folks. And he barely lost that election. But they were the Obama Walker Trump voter. And they voted for Trump in 2016. All right. You know what? I am going to show you this. Do you guys mind if I take Trump off for a hot minute to show you this? Because I think it's pretty important. All right. Now, this is the latest voter file poll that I just did. I'm just doing this now in Wisconsin, okay? Here it is. Let's get it. There it is. I just ran this, and we've been over the inferals. If you guys are new to how we do things over here, you know that the inferal is damn accurate. It's very scary accurate. There are hundreds of data points, cross-reference data points that go into what makes up the inferred partisan designation in states where it's not always as easy just from voter registration to find out. And in some states, they have none, right? So here you can see now Republicans outnumber Democrats in the state of Wisconsin by more than 200,000 votes, about 239 and change, about 239,200 and what looks to be 13, or maybe I'm wrong, 16. Yeah, I did that in my head. So if it's just off, that's why. But generally, about 200,000 voters. And that leads to a partisan edge. If we were to round, Wisconsin is getting more Republican. It's R+5. If you follow on the releases of these that we do, the last one we did, I think, was R+3 or R+4. So this is actually a tad more Republican since the month just updated. These are updated every month. Republicans are now at a base advantage of 39%, while Democrats are at a base advantage of 34%. Now, that 27 roughly of unknown, these people, they can and do swing an election. These people decide who's going to win the bow wow. These people decide how much, not whether or not They will win, but by how much Democrats will win in the Northwest. Part of that carved into that county we talked about in Wisconsin 7 with Tom Tiffany. They swung back. Tammy Baldwin carried that district, if you break it down. Barack Obama carried that district. That district just started to lean Republican. It's a very working class roots, and they're proud of it. And I mean that by labor working class. They are part of the labor movement, the history of the labor movement. They just started to go to the right about 2010. All right. So in my mind, I was thinking that Wisconsin was probably going to be one of the easier ones to hold because the voter file in Pennsylvania, it's strong for Democrats. However, if they don't come out and vote, it doesn't really matter. And Joe Biden has a problem. Okay. This is the latest result. And let's get rid of this and let's bring up Pennsylvania. All right. This is the Secretary of State official results in the state of Pennsylvania. Okay. And you'll probably be hard pressed to see this puppy, but let me just tell you what it is. All right. Overall, Donald Trump is about over 94% of the vote, meaning his base is solid. He's locked up and he's got nearly 862,000 votes. Joe Biden is below 80% at 77.7, and he's got even 734,400 votes. Bernie Sanders is taking nearly 20% of the vote, just under 19, which is, by the way, up from yesterday when I looked. Biden looked like he may get 80%, but he's ticking down now. And well, it's not a suspicion. The reason why is some of the larger cities will report later. Joe Biden is doing better against him in rural areas. And Bernie Sanders kind of flipped the script this time. He used to get that rural working class, and now he's not. And some of the bigger city centers are for Bernie, the most liberal ones. And then that's coming in now. And Bernie's got 176,940 votes. Tulsi Gabbard has nearly 34,000 votes and almost 4% of the vote. That is a protest vote for Joe Biden. The 2020 Democratic nomination has effectively ended 3 months ago. At this point, Joe Biden, nobody's contesting him. Nobody's challenging him. They have all dropped out, and they've all offered their full-throated endorsement of Joe Biden's candidacy. Even Bernie Sanders, even the 2016 Democratic nominee, even Barack Obama. Bernie Sanders even held a virtual town hall during which he implored he encouraged strongly his supporters to support Joe Biden. As you can see, that is not happening. He basically got about the same vote as he did when he was basically finished, but still running and had not given up. Now, the vote that is in the remaining outside of the Philadelphia and outside of the Allegheny Democratic strongholds, a large chunk of the vote that Bernie Sanders is getting in the rest of the state, Joe Biden cannot rely on. We know it from polling, and we know it from demographics. Those are not votes that Joe Biden can assume that he is going to get. When you add up the partisan vote, Democrats outvoted Republicans by only a couple 10,000s. That's it. The difference between, at this point right now, the difference between the Democratic edge in 2016 and the Democratic edge in 2020 is about 60,000 votes. Okay? About 1.6 million Republicans voted in the 2016 Republican primary. Donald Trump got 902,000 votes, which was really only 57, just under 57% of the electorate. Hillary Clinton got 935,000 votes out of 1.7 million almost, which also represented about 56% of the electorate. Back then, it was still a competitive primary. So the vote is not looking very strong for Joe Biden. And it gets worse because when you actually look at the Secretary of State's numbers, okay, which we'll do right now. Let's go by, where is it out and get there again? Oh, by the way, if you look down at the other races, Attorney General separated by 4,000 votes, and Republican State Treasurer, actually Republicans outvoted Democrats in that. All right, but if we go by counties, let's go to Bucks County, okay? And let me just make sure there's not a better way to do this. Bucks County, we went over when we did the voter analysis, okay? We went over this and we said how important Bucks County would be. Donald Trump and Republicans overall, the vote looks bad in Bucks County for Joe Biden. This is an area where Hillary Clinton carried Bucks by 2 points. This is an area where Mitt Romney did better and actually outperformed slightly Barack Obama. But Barack Obama did much better in other parts of the state, like Luzerne, Erie. If you go back, I'll tell you, I'll refer you to the voter analysis episode for Pennsylvania, and this will give you a much better idea. If you watch the show and you didn't see that one, go back and look at that one, and it'll give you a much better idea of what I'm talking about. There are tons, by the way, of independent voters out because Bucks County is to the northeast of Philadelphia. It's an area where, you know, the media harps on the suburbs and those voters that Mitt Romney had that don't particularly like Donald Trump. It's a very important area. Donald Trump got 46,000 votes. Joe Biden got just over 30,000. And Bernie got 7,000. Okay? So if you and Tulsi got 1,200. So if you put it all together, Democrats got less total votes than Donald Trump got alone. A lot less, about 7,000 less. That's a big deal. That's an area of the state. Go back and look at what we were talking about back in that other episode, and you will see that I was telling you, if Joe Biden's going to win Pennsylvania, it is not going to be in Bidentown. It is not going to be in Scranton. It's not going to be in Erie. It's not going to be in Luzerne. He's not going to take those voters from Donald Trump. It's going to be those suburbs. It's going to be the Bucks County. Maybe he'll improve on Hillary Clinton's lead in Bucks County. That's how he'll take the state of Pennsylvania from Donald Trump. Not with these numbers, he won't. Not with these numbers. I'll tell you right now. This is showing me Democrats have an enthusiasm problem. Joe Biden has an enthusiasm problem. He's got a base problem. And he cannot count on those voters that voted for Tulsi Gabbard and voted for Bernie Sanders. And again, that's borne out by polling. I'm not talking out of my butt here. Depending on the state, anywhere from 15 to upwards of 40% of Bernie Sanders supporters said they won't vote for Joe Biden. In Minnesota, being among the worst. Now, Pennsylvania looking like they're not joking. So when change.org, whatever, polls for CNBC, they just released a poll in Pennsylvania, showed Trump up by 4. I think that's a little bit rosy. I don't think anybody really is going to win the state of Pennsylvania by 4 points. I'm thinking we're looking at a lot less than the Obama numbers, the Obama margin of victory in Pennsylvania, and a lot more like the battle for Pennsylvania in Bush v. Gore and Bush v. Kerry. Very close. But if I was to just look at this electorate and extrapolate so I can kind of estimate what a general election electorate would look like. Average the polls for independents because we don't know exactly how they'd vote. Although clearly, it looks like if one party has a base advantage, it helps them with the independent vote because it means the independents that lean to them are going to vote at higher rates, which helps to dictate the overall margin. If we were going to play the game of if this electorate was representative of the general election electorate, which 2016 in Pennsylvania turned out to be pretty darn close. A slight Democratic edge because they have a lot more Democrats in the state, but only a slight edge because Trump's enthusiasm gap is so big. And then, independents do what they have typically done at the presidential level for the last 4 elections, going back to 2008. Then we can, that is Madam Producer yelling at me not to give away any secrets. I won't give it away. I'm just telling them the result of of our little estimate. Then you're looking at a Trump victory in the state of Pennsylvania from a low of 20,000 votes to a high of 110, depending on that margin for independents. If you look at the Change poll, he's doing exceptionally well. If you look at some of the other polls, even the one he's losing in, some of them, it's only by a few points, independent-wise. The reason why those polls in Pennsylvania have him down by bigger margins is because they're modeling D+6, D+8 electorates. That absolutely can happen in the state of Pennsylvania. It can. They have it. I showed you the voter file. They have it. The problem is, looking at this vote, it doesn't look like they're going to get it. In 2016, the electorate in Pennsylvania, and I don't want to shoot out of my butt here, we were spot on. Actually, all I have to do is look at the PPD battleground polls. Let me do that instead, because we were spot on. We were dead on. Yeah, I want to say it was D+2, but just bear with me and let me double check my work here. There's Florida. I've showed you guys this before. It's the spreadsheet of the last 2 or 3 polls of each state. Yeah, so we had it higher. It was D+6 in Pennsylvania, our final poll, but Trump won independents by 8. Now, it doesn't look like it would be D+6 in this example. And by the way, the turnout edge was representative of that. Like I said, in 2016, Hillary Clinton and the Democrats, they voted not at the best levels that they could have, but they still outvoted Republicans by about 100,000 votes. And Joe Biden's about at 30% of that edge right now. So that would indicate D+2, D+3. And if that's true, I'm being generous by doing D+3. It's just that Democrats in Pennsylvania can surprise the hell out of you. Pennsylvania stops reporting. Philadelphia stops reporting. And the next thing you know, you have all of this chunk coming in. That's what they do. Chris Matthews told you the truth, folks. He told you the truth. All right. And that's what we took that. What was that, on Tuesday or Wednesday? I showed you that. They have enough dead voters alone in that county. Enough dead voters alone to offset that. So they can be surprising. So I'm being generous. Let's say it's D+3. And Trump carries independents like the change.org poll says. I don't know where they got Trump +4 from. Like I said, that's very rosy. That would be a collapse for Joe Biden completely. But I know where they got it from. I'm just saying I don't agree with it. I think we're looking at a very close race either way right now. Unless, of course, these job numbers keep coming in like this, then we may not be. If we're look, here, let me just say this right now and tell you this right now. If the job numbers continue to hammer like this, and if there is no resurgence of the coronavirus, and Democrats continue to go down this lawlessness and disorder road, then those suburban white women we've been talking about are going to freak out. They're going to get scared. I think that some of this in Bucks County, and like we saw with Mike Garcia in California 25, the first Republican ever to carry Hispanics in that district, the first one to carry independents. I think back then we were looking at LA County saying they were going to extend their lockdown. Joe Biden's entire justification is that he's going to restore normalcy. Well, defunding police departments in major U.S. cities is not a suburban woman's idea of normalcy. That's their idea of chaos. And I think we saw that in Bucks County. I think it's pretty evident. And if this continues and the jobs numbers just keep hammering, 2 million, 2.5 million, even 1.5 million, 500,000, and it continues, Trump's going to look like a superstar. There's going to be lawlessness in the which, by the way, I told you earlier, and I hate to keep going off like on a tangent. I'm just in one of these freewheeling Friday. I don't have to keep a train of thought. Lawlessness in the streets. If you don't think that Democratic mayors and Democratic governors are using this for a political weapon, then I, like Ron DeSantis, have a bridge to sell you. They are going to use it. Macy's burning keeps Macy's from rehiring their workers. Small businesses being vandalized and people being attacked keeps them from rehiring their workers. That's how this works. That's how this goes. If you don't think they care more about power than they do about you, you're a fool. You're naive. I'm sorry to be the first one to tell you that. As a matter of fact, Joe Biden lost support from police yesterday. If for those of you who didn't see it in Politico, for lurching so far to the left, they couldn't even recognize him anymore. Donald Trump was actually the first Republican to earn endorsements from certain police organizations in a while in 2016. Some of them went back to Joe Biden or appeared they were going to. And now yesterday, Mark Caputo, I'll tell you what, man, I have had interactions with Mark because he covers Florida politics. So I've given him polling and stuff that we've done before. He does very good work. Politico is a rag. It is a left-wing rag, but Mark does good work. And he had a great piece yesterday, for those of you who didn't read it, maybe we'll link it in the YouTube, about Joe Biden scaring away support that he has always enjoyed from police because they used to think of him as their guy. Before we go to the break, let's play this. I put this in the response to Trump's tweet yesterday when he said Joe Biden was hard on crime in the 90s crime bill. Joe Biden used to say, it doesn't matter that they don't have a father. They're still killing our women. They're still attacking our families. They're still perpetrating violence on law-abiding citizens. That's who Joe Biden used to be. Now, he's somebody who will use the funeral of George Floyd as a prop. And apparently the family will let him. You invite Al Sharpton, it's pretty clear which direction you're going to go. Even Crump, Mr. Crump, and his once partner, I don't know if they're still partners, Daryl. In Florida, for years, these guys got millions of dollars, basically, not blackmailing, but strong arming Charlie Crist, who was the governor at the time, they would go around and find these instances and threaten to sue the state and police departments, and the police departments would seek to recover it from the state. So instead of it, Charlie Crist would just buy this guy off. And they had millions of dollars that the state of Florida gave to Mr. Crump. And we know that because we did a report on him during the Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman case. If you remember, that's where he got his national name. Okay? And we did a dive on this guy. And we were like, who is he? A lot of people knew him. They talked to us, said, oh, this guy, Benjamin, this guy's been busting our chops for years. And Charlie Crist was too afraid. He didn't have the spine. So he would cave and he'd give them money. And that is the living he made for years before he got a national name. This is what Joe Biden used to think of black crime. And yet, while he is, if you don't believe me, go back. I'll put the C-SPAN thing in the damn video description. He is talking about black neighborhoods. And by the way, law-abiding black citizens were a huge supporting bloc for this bill. This is Joe Biden.
Must take back the streets. It doesn't matter whether or not the person that is accosting your son or daughter or my son or daughter, my wife, your husband, my mother, your parents. It doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth. It doesn't matter or not whether or not they had no background that enabled them to become socialized into the fabric of society. It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons. So I don't want to ask, what made them do this? They must be taken off the street. That's number one. There's a consensus on that. Unless we do something about that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscience developing, because they literally, I yield myself 3 more minutes, because they literally have not been socialized. They literally have not had an opportunity. We should focus on them now. If we don't, they will, or a portion of them will, become the predators 15 years from now. And Madam President, we have predators on our streets that society has, in fact, in part because of its neglect, created. Again, it does not mean because we created them that we somehow forgive them or do not take them out of society to protect my family and yours from them. They are beyond the pale, many of those people. Beyond the pale. And it's a sad commentary on society. We have no choice but to take them out of society. And the truth is, we don't very well know how to rehabilitate them at that point. That's the sad truth. I'm the guy that said, rehabilitation, when it occurs, we don't understand it and notice it. And even when we notice it and we know it occurs, we don't know.
Predators! We have predators! They become predators! Like Hillary Clinton said, super predators! I mean, these people, you got to be kidding me. All right, it is 11:04, almost 11:05. You are watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm the People's Pundit, Rich Barris, right there at People's_Pundit on Twitter. You can follow me if you don't already. We're going to take a break for a hot minute, and when we come back, we'll laugh at Joe Biden a little bit more, right? That's always fun, and we'll laugh at some other idiots on the streets. That's always fun, too. Hopefully, we have a time to crack in as many as we can, because we might as well just laugh today, folks. 2.5 million jobs. Be right back.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a knife, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Dun, 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 dun. 2.5 million jobs, suckers. All right, we're back. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. Follow me on Twitter at People's_Pundit. It is Freewheeling Friday, June 5th. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, folks. And don't forget to like the page, People's Pundit Daily, on Facebook. The ultimate way to support the show, of course, is to subscribe to PPD, which you could do by going to peoplespunditdaily.com or ppdnews.us/subscribe. I didn't drink enough water on the break, so I may need a water break. All right. It's Freewheeling Friday. What can I tell you? All right. Who should we laugh at first? Since we're at Joe Biden anyway, let's look at this guy. I'm telling you, with these millions of jobs, he could look. Trump is a vulnerable incumbent. I've told you guys this over and over. But Joe Biden could just end up beating himself here. You know, if the economy comes roaring back, or at least appears that it's coming to roar back, and we have, continuous months like we've seen, and then we have no revamp of the coronavirus. And yes, I did see that study from Lancet, or the retraction of the study from Dr. Fauci's friends. All right. Showing that first the study said hydroxychloroquine was not effective. Then they retracted it. They look incredibly foolish. Like I said on the episode of The Perversion of Science and Data, there is no profession anymore in which politics has not corrupted the code of ethics. They are all corrupted now, and it's a very sad commentary. A very, very sad commentary. All right, but it is a reality. And the Lancet study is a perfect example. But, let's get back to our buddy Joe. Okay, let's get back. Let's get back to our buddy Joe and look at what he did yesterday. Because here's Joe trying to placate the mob. And my good buddy Tom Purcell once got into a Twitter fight with a great actor. I love him as an actor, Don Cheadle. He once got into an argument with him over the environment. All right. So they use race they put the issue of race forward, but this has nothing to do, very little to do with race. It's about class and it's about an agenda. And Don Cheadle is a perfect example. He got into it with my good buddy Tom Purcell, the host of Liberty Never Sleeps. And they were fighting over the environment overall, but straws, right? Don Cheadle was like making the case like banning plastic straws would do so much more for the environment and, pollution everywhere. And Tom fired back at him with, got into carbon levels and emissions, and Tom fired back with actual numbers like China and India, and then they're not going to stop, so it wouldn't do much considering America's private sector has done more to reduce carbon emissions, and those are the numbers, than any other government has been able to do who signed on to some of these crazy global worldwide plans. Even going back, by the way, to the Kyoto Protocol. We beat the targets and we didn't even sign on to them. Trump withdrew from the Paris Accord and we did better with greenhouse gases and carbon levels than they did. Anyway, so Joe Biden is trying to placate, the people in the streets who want to get rid of cops, losing police support over it. And the guy can't even do well. He better hope this doesn't turn back into a traditional election. One of the questions was, when is Donald Trump going to start rallies again, right? Well, if there's no revamp of the coronavirus and the economy comes roaring back and this turns back into a traditional election, then this is what they're not going to be able to hide.
The act of protesting should never be allowed to overshadow the reason for the protest. The act of protesting should never be allowed to overshadow the reason for the protest in the first place. And what I worry about tomorrow night in Wilmington, for example, there's a lot of really good people. I'm going to be out. I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be up in Pennsylvania. But tomorrow night, what I worry a little bit about is you and many others are going to be out there protesting legitimately for change. But we can't allow the protesting to overshadow the purpose of the protest. So
in case you guys didn't get it, he's really concerned that we can't allow the act of protesting to overshadow the reason for the protest. The guy just got stuck in he's got a card in front of him. They told him what to say. And he can't say it. He doesn't know what the hell he can't string together a series of cohesive thoughts. This is a real problem for Joe Biden. They need the coronavirus. They need it. They need race riots. They need it. They need the economy to tank. They need it for everything Donald Trump is. At least he can think for himself. Right? I mean, they should just put out the team of people who are going to surround Joe Biden first, because Americans should know at least who they're voting for. Are they going to be like the Brian Fallons who surrounded Hillary Clinton, who are now tweeting to defund the police? And speaking of Hillary Clinton, the basket of deplorables comment hurt Hillary Clinton badly. During a fundraiser a couple of months ago, I don't think the show started by the time this happened, but Joe Biden made a very similar comment. It was able to basically be buried because of one crisis and Leviathan after another. They were able to smoke this thing and bury it. So it didn't get much traction. But during this very same little thing yesterday with Don Cheadle, Joe Biden made another comment. A very stupid comment. Number one, it's not true. Number two, it reinforces the previous comment that he made, which was he basically said that they were talking about his ability to win back working class. And he said that I can't, Donald Trump supporters are racist anyway, basically. And then he goes into, but I'm going to win them back, First of all, he's making no gains. I mean, the numbers don't show that. He's making no gains with working class. If he's going to win this election, he's going to do it on the backs of educated whites in the suburbs specifically. And as we showed you in one prior episode, educated, even from 4 years ago, is not the same group of people. So it's not necessarily true that all of those voters have just soured on Donald Trump. It's not necessarily true. They don't look the same as they did 4 years ago. They damn sure don't look the same as they did 10 years ago, 8 years ago. All right? But he's going off and he tells private donors that they're racist and that's it. Talking about those working class people. His campaign would later try to walk it back and say, well, we were just talking about a certain element within society, within Trump's base, which of course is not true. They want you to believe they're two different people. They're two different groups of people. They're not. They're the same. Are there elements of society that are racist? Of course. And we're going to talk about that in a hot minute. But let's look at how many Joe Biden thinks in this country are just bad people.
We'll have to address these issues straight on. And the words the president says matter. So when a president stands up and divides people all the time, you're going to get the worst of us to come out, the worst in us all to come out. The president constantly talks about equality without lecturing, talks about and has administration that looks like the country and the rest. It changes attitudes. And it's about the attitude of the country. Do we want our kids, do we really think this is as good as we can be as a nation? I don't think the vast majority of people think that. There are probably anywhere from 10 to 15% of the people out there that are just not very good people. But that's not who we are. The vast majority of the people are decent. We have to appeal to that, and we have to unite people, bring them together. Bring them together.
10 to 15%. All right, let's do some of those numbers. All right, let's just take what he said on face value. 10 to 15% of Americans are just not good people. And here he's got a problem because the last comments were covered by, us. I think Breitbart covered it, but not, mainstream papers, mainstream online media, mainstream cable media did not cover those comments. What were essentially, or should have been, his basket of deplorables moment. But they are covering this. The first one to grab this and go with it was Bloomberg, of all people. The last count, the last estimate, the U.S. population is 340 million people, roughly, okay? 10 to 15% would be, 10 would be 34 million and 15 would be about 50. He's talking about at this point too. What are we talking about? This is about supposedly police racism, systemic police racism. And then some guy on Twitter in support of it and not, knocking the rest of them, so that if you watch any of the tens of thousands, okay, of videos that pop up every night of the people most duty bound to, most of these 10,000 are duty bound to protect and serve, casually stomping on people, then basically the 10 to 15% estimate is not unbelievable. And this is from the Twitter account, Ken Tremendous. It's a verified Twitter account. So he's most of the tens of thousands of videos that he's seen, even though that is not borne out by even the Washington Post's database of police brutality. All right. If we're talking about police, 10% is 34 million people. The largest police force in this country, which is the NYPD, is 36,000. That's it. The hell are you talking about, man? And you're not looking at tens of thousands of videos. Because even according to the Washington Post, by the way, when we first talked about those numbers, the number of unarmed black men that have been shot by the police, that number was 9. Since then, they have been fudging everything they could find to try to get that number higher. And as last night, it was 15 all of a sudden. Which is a joke by how they do it. Like I said, there is no profession that hasn't been corrupted ethically. They are doing their level best to get that number as high as it can be. Why? Because people like me grabbed it. And then the day we did it, that night, Tucker did it. And it's making the rounds. Those numbers are making the rounds. So they're trying to find any instance they possibly can to find where it was a police officer who shot an unarmed black man. Didn't matter if the guy tried mowing a police officer down with his car, which was one example they added. It's crazy. It's crazy and very dishonest, very unethical. It's beyond fake news. It's beyond fake news. It should be basically damn criminal. And when we talk about this issue, we're talking, of course, the NYPD, for instance, is a majority-minority police force in an overwhelmingly Democratic city. It has been run by Democrats for many, 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 many years. Rudy Giuliani, his 8 years being the exception to the rule. For the most part, these are blue cities, many of them in blue states. They have been dominated, like the Wall Street Journal opined, Dan Henninger of the Wall Street Journal. Great column if you didn't read it yesterday. Sometimes going as back as early as the 1930s. They have dominated these areas. So when they're talking about 10 to 15% of Americans being racist, where is racism in this country? First of all, it's a ludicrous number. But of course there is racism. Where is racism in this country? How many of you out there have actually lived in both urban and rural America? If you have, you know what I'm about to say is absolutely true, which is that most racists are in urban America, not rural America. The salt of the earth of this country are not what you project on them to be because you yourself are. You will not go to a rural born-again Christian church and find a bunch of white people dying to string up a black person. That is ludicrous. You will, however, doesn't matter, I mean, really. You will, however, find a ton of racism and racists in urban centers in this country. Whether you're talking about the American ghetto, many of whom flat out hate white people and hate other minorities that they have to share neighboring borders with. Let's talk real. This country is burning. People cannot be afraid to say this stuff anymore. They have to speak the truth. And then when you go uptown, like in my former city, you'll find a bunch of white people who hate themselves, who are racist toward themselves and their own race. And then they project that onto the rest of the country because they are themselves like that. So they feel that they have to make the rest of the country like, they have to view the rest of the country like that. And it's not like that. One of I would say the most appreciative I am from my time in the Army, my experiences in the Army, is that when I had to train all over the South. I was from the North. I was born in New York. My family was an Italian family from the 5 boroughs. We later moved to Jersey, but I was a Northerner and damn proud of it. We're taught in school that you were the good guys. They were the bad guys. You don't learn about the burning in Savannah, Georgia, until maybe you join the Army. You don't learn about Sherman, Grant's right-hand man, and what he did. You don't hear about that. And one of the greatest appreciations I have for the Army is that it opened my eyes up to the rest of the country. They're simply not what you're told they are. It's just not true. Are they skeptical of a greaseball Italian from the North? Absolutely. Did they nickname you Jersey because you got a big mouth? Absolutely. Maybe that's because I had a big mouth. Maybe that's because I fit the stereotype. And that's okay. Because everybody's different in this country. I like the South now. I live in the South now. I'm never going back to the North. You're not free if you live in a northern state. You don't enjoy the promise of American citizenship the way you do in other parts of the country. You are not allowed to defend yourself from rioters. You are not allowed to defend your home from invasion and burglary. Told you the story last week of a friend of mine. You're not even allowed to defend your home or your wife from a rapist without having to answer for why you used deadly force. You're damn sure not allowed to carry a firearm to protect yourself. You'll never get that permit. You're not even allowed to buy fireworks on the 4th of July because they view you as not potentially, the general unwashed masses are too stupid to light a firework fuse. And yes, there are always people every year who get hurt with fireworks. Guess what? Risk to your security comes with liberty. The more free you are, sometimes the more dangerous things can be. Like Thomas Jefferson said, you have no right, no natural right, to which an equal or greater duty has not been assigned. You do not have the right to life if you do not wish to take on the duty of defending it. If you choose to give that up, if you choose to skirt that duty and delegate it to somebody else in government, then you forfeit that liberty, or at least a good share of it. And people, at this point, people have just got to be more willing to talk about this stuff for what it is. Maybe after the break here, I'll pull up the lynching story. Anti-lynching legislation? Are you kidding me? Are you joking? There hasn't been a traditional lynching in this country. And since I don't want to get his name wrong, but we pulled it up. We did this research during the Jesse Smollett hoax, fraud, by the way. And that person was punished severely. The people responsible were punished. All right. Before we go to the break, though, the 10 to 15% comment. This one is funny. I got to make sure I get the hat tip for this one, though. All right. This is somebody. And then also, too, when we do come back, want to wrap up. I want to have my little outgoing monologue for the week and then about voter fraud to wrap up the series that we did. And then we'll get into some questions that you have. But I have an example I want to show you. All week long, we have been looking at voter files and looking at deceased recent movers and other inactive voters. And I've been telling you what the danger of some of these Democratic proposals are, what they will lead to, and absolutely they will lead to fraud. And I will show you exactly an example of exactly what I was talking about. But let's first laugh some more at some idiots. You ready?
Satanic Temple.
Satanic Temple?
We're atheists and we're Satanists.
Are you for or against Trump?
We're against Trump.
Why?
Why do you think? He's going to take most of our rights away. Not happy about that. We want to protect you.
Because it's where it comes off of the metal rim. Can somebody sneeze?
What a bunch of idiots. Are you an atheist? Yeah, hat tip, whatever that name is from Twitter. Are you an atheist or are you a Satanist? An atheist doesn't believe in God or gods. That is the definition of an atheist. You don't believe in deities. Everybody seems to think like we have. This is the problem with reading with not reading, folks. This is the damage our liberal education. our indoctrination centers have done to this society. Are you a Satanist or are you an atheist? Because you really can't be both. If you believe in Satan, then you believe in some kind of deity or deity-like power. But anyway, then she goes on to say, we're against Trump because he's going to take our rights away. He had 4 years to do it. Are you not walking the streets? Are you not out protesting? If he was going to take your rights away, he'd have done it. If he was going to stop your right to protest and worship Satan and cut little bunnies' heads off to worship your demonic god, he would have done it already, fool. You're still able to walk the streets, aren't you? It's so stupid. These people are ridiculously stupid. Everything they say is an oxymoron, right? Like, this is what we live with. Yeah, totally. Those are my friends. My BFFs right there. On Saturdays, Laura just didn't tell you guys in the chat. On Saturdays, I don the black robe, I paint my face up, and I cut up little bunnies for fun. You know? I mean, God. You know, what a unbelievable. All right, but it is 10:31. You are watching. Well, thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am the People's Pundit right there, Rich Barris. You can follow me on Twitter at Peoples_Pundit if you don't already. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, okay? We are, you guys did great yesterday through my little pitch, and we are so close, so close. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Don't forget to like the page, People's Pundit Daily, on Facebook if you are a Facebook user. And also, of course, the best way to support the show is to subscribe to peoplespunditdaily.com, which you can do by going to peoplespunditdaily.com and choosing one of the digital subscriptions or credit tiers, or you can go to pbdnews.us/subscribe. pbdnews.us/subscribe. Get some data for your dollar. Can't promise, like I've always said, like I've been saying, can't promise we'll cover everything. We don't have the staff of the New York Times, but I will promise we will cover what is important, and we will do it better than others. Okay? That is how we get access to the databases that we show you. I've been saying this week because it really is true. Even with other great alternative media sites that do great work, nobody is doing what we're doing here. So I'm glad we started this show. Nobody is going to open up these voter files and tell you that the Washington Post fact checker is full of crap, that CNN is full of crap, that nobody else will be able to do this and challenge them to open up their voter file. Get to your YouTube channel. Show me where I'm wrong. I've challenged them. It's been 3 days, 4 days, whatever it's been. You're not going to get any takers because they know that I am telling you the truth. Of course, dead people. Of course, recent movers are no longer eligible. And of course, inactive voters are going to get ballots. And if there are ballot harvesters, especially, of course, they are going to harvest those ballots. And as we showed all week long, the problems are disproportionate in Democratic strongholds. So even if the state of Nevada or a court says it's not fair for Clark County alone to do this, the entire state of Nevada must have the ability to mail out ballots to everybody, whether or not they are legal or they are not. It won't matter because Clark County is 68% of the vote statewide. They're 80% of the problem of inactive, dead, and recent movers on the voter rolls. So it would disproportionately favor them, even if Republicans decided to fund some ballot harvesters, to go fill in ballots that don't belong to them or have no business voting. It's not going to help. It's still not fair. It's still not a level playing field. Yesterday, I don't know if somebody had tweeted something, but There was an article, I think it was, that they tweeted about fraud. We were just talking about it in Nevada, and there was, ballots flying all over the place and people grabbing them. They're going to fill them in. And we also spoke about Michigan. We did that yesterday. We did Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. And we did that because that's where the lawsuits are. That's where the Democrats first filed to be able to mail ballots to everybody. And then that's where Republicans made a stand and tried to fight back. The media is going to tell you, and again, I implore, because I'll tell you, there's viewers today that there weren't in the last couple of days. I am imploring you to go back and look at the last couple of days. If you don't want to hear a 2-hour episode, go to the segments with the voter files when we went over voter fraud. Usually it's the last segment in the show. And you will see the numbers for yourself. Being registered to vote in the United States of America is not the same as being eligible to vote. Being on the voter rolls, which is what the media says. No, it's not going to be illegals. It's only people who are registered to vote. There are illegals registered to vote because of motor voter, as we talked about today, because of outreach, or as we talked about this week, because of outreach. They are on the rolls. Absolutely. People who are registered to the same address who should not be registered. So yesterday, in response, a follower of mine tweeted me what happened to him at his house in Michigan. This is Macomb County. Pretty damn important county. In case you don't know, this is Macomb. He lives in Macomb. And one of the counties, one of the 14, I believe it is, that Donald Trump flipped, that Barack Obama won. It will be absolutely key for Donald Trump if he wants to have a prayer of holding the state of Michigan. And this is what happened to a follower of mine on Twitter. This is his house. Let me get the banner up. Hat tip him. There he is. Labor Conservative he goes by. That's the username on Twitter. It's at GGoBlue. These are no less than 4 notices. He said he's been getting them like crazy. Who are they? Just about everybody who's lived at his home for the last 20 damn years at that address. They no longer live there. Now, if he wanted, there is nothing stopping him from filling in those ballots and mailing them back. Nothing. If he wanted to right now, and he's not, he's like joking. It's tempting, but no. Because traditionally, look, Republicans don't do what Democrats do. There's fraud on both sides. There is. That's why we had to redo a special election in North Carolina. It absolutely does happen. But not on the scale that it does for Democrats. And go back and look at all of the videos we showed you over this last week and ask yourself whether you trust those people to not fill those ballots in and mail them back. Of course they'll do it. Or maybe, like we saw in California in 2018, and like we're going to see in Nevada and Clark County, the ballot harvesters will go out to unsuspecting seniors, take advantage of them, which has long been a problem. I can even link in the YouTube description. The New York Times are covering those kinds of stories years ago before they turned into what is essentially a rag and a propaganda outlet who now promises and swears to their readers that the very thing they reported on for years and years and years does not exist. In fact, does not exist. This is a perfect example. He could fill his ballot in, and he could fill in the ballot of the 3 people who are still registered to his address because they didn't update it when they left. They have a change of address flag. This would not have happened, and in fact did not happen prior. It only happened because Democrats changed how these ballots are going out. And everybody, whether they are inactive, have a change of address flag, or are dead, will get a ballot. And he could fill that in if he wanted to, and send it back, and nobody would stop him. Nobody. Now, I'm not, of course, encouraging him to do so. I'm simply telling you that is your problem. That is the problem I have been talking about with you guys all week long. Of course it's going to happen. Number one, of course, people were going to get ballots like this. And number two, of course, there will be people who have been taught and told now to hate Donald Trump's guts so much that by doing something wrong, it's not really doing anything wrong because you're fighting against evil. Really, you're a hero for breaking the law and cheating because he's such an evil person. He's Hitler. He's basically Hitler incarnate, in case you guys haven't heard. He's going to take away your rights.
Satanic temple.
Satanic temple?
We're atheists and we're Satanists.
Are you for or against Trump?
We're against Trump.
Why?
Why do you think he's going to take most of our rights away?
He's going to take your rights away. So you're the hero in this story if you cheat. You're the hero. You think that woman, if she gets 4 ballots, isn't going to fill those ballots in and send them back? Come on, what planet do you live on? Of course she's going to. Of course she would. And sadly, there are tons of people like her. Joe Biden just told us 10 to 15% of America are bad people. Right, Joe? Right. Joe, what do you have to say about the 2.5 million jobs? Well, you know, that thing. I should do that more. Maybe I'll practice my Joe Biden and we could play around with Joe. I'm sorry. All right, let's get back to seriousness, right? But of course, I mean, he just told us that 10 to 15% of America are bad people, so we should expect nothing more from somebody like Joe Biden. There is one more thing I want to share. So if you guys do have your questions, go ahead and get them in. I'm going to see if I can't get this thing right. Donald Trump yesterday tweeted and this is going to, I don't want it to cut off, but Donald Trump tweeted yesterday a letter from John Dowd, okay, who, if you guys don't remember, was his lawyer during for the first part of the Russia hoax, okay? And he's also happens to be, John is also a veteran of the Marine Corps, all right? Mad Dog Mattis that we spoke about yesterday, who wrote that piece basically calling Donald Trump, linking him, like making an analogy to him as being like the Nazis, comparing him is the word, to being a Nazi for what had happened. Donald Trump takes to Twitter yesterday and puts out this letter that it's an email that John Dowd apparently sent to Jim Mattis. And Jim Mattis shrunk a little bit yesterday. Not a little, a lot. He shrunk to a very small man yesterday. I want to read this flat out. And I know it's going to go overlap over me because it's kind of a last minute thing. But Jim, I slept on your statement and woke up appalled and upset. You lost me. Never dreamed you would let a bunch of hack politicians use your good name and reputation earned with the blood and guts of young Marines. You did what you said you would do. Engage in this discourse. Marines keep their word. The phony protesters near Lafayette Park were not peaceful and are not real. They are terrorists using idle hate-filled students to burn and destroy. I want to make an argument there about that. Idle hate-filled students is right on the money. They were abusing and disrespecting the police when the police were preparing the area for the 1900 curfew. He's speaking in military terms, being that they're both former, well, you know, General Mattis. And Jim, this is the new nihilism. See Dan Henninger in Wall Street Journal today. Marines support the police in harm's way. Did you forget that President Bush used active duty Marines to quell the riots in LA? We talked about that earlier in the week. President Trump has counties or countless cities and some snowflake governors and mayors wetting themselves in the use of force to protect innocent lives and property. The Attorney General of Massachusetts thinks burning property is good protest. 3 more politicians were stabbed and shot in New York City last night. Think about it. Should he be upset about the obvious failure of leadership? Where are you, Jim? Marines go to the fight. No one divided this country more than Obama. He abandoned our black brothers and sisters. He gave guns to the cartels. He apologized for our precious sacrifice and generosity overseas. You remember? He fired you. President Trump had done more to help our minority brothers and sisters in 3 years than anyone in the last 50. Ask the black pastors. Ask the leaders of the black colleges and universities. He got them funded. Ask them about the prison reform, which ended the draconian sentences imposed on young black men by the laws enacted by Biden and his hacks. You need to bone up on your homework and stop listening to Uncle Leon. He's talking about Leon Panetta, all right? Because Mattis is a Democrat. He is. He is a Clinton person. He's talking about Leon Panetta. I understand you had to stick it to the assigned narrative, and which do not include 3 years of corrupt investigations and evidence to destroy the president, his office, and his lawful free election. Nancy has no tolerance for dissent in the ranks, including those with stars, meaning generals. You said nothing of the ugly, hate-filled, disgraceful comments of Pelosi, Schumer, Perez, and other Democrat hacks defaming the president and his office. You said nothing of the unlawful sanctuary cities and the unlawful release of hoodlums. You said nothing of the resistance movement to paralyze our courts and our government operations. You said nothing of the obstruction and subversion of our immigration laws. You said nothing of MS-13 killers and drug cartels who own huge sections of our major cities. Jim, do you think that hateful rhetoric and those corrupt actions were inspired and unifying? Do you think DIs at Paris, drill instructors at Paris Island would find such behavior as unifying? He's talking about drill instructors who take in new Marines at Paris Island. That's where they have their boot camp. Maybe your problem is a lot deeper. Perhaps you ought to explain how and why you and John Allen, as CG Central Command, did not engage and take out Iranian Major General Qassem Soleimani, who Donald Trump ordered the killing of, who roamed the Middle East and wreaked havoc and death on our American boys with his infamous IEDs, improvised explosive devices. Qassem Soleimani was behind most of the improvised explosive devices that killed and maimed our troops in Iraq. Why did it take President Trump to have the instincts and balls to take him out? Of course, over the objection of the geniuses in the Pentagon. It looks like the Persian mullahs were a one-horse sleigh and Trump nailed the horse forever. It's been quiet ever since. Perhaps, I'm sorry, perhaps your anger is born of embarrassment for your own failure as the leader of Central Command. Did you applaud when the president recognized the central problem in the Middle East? Did you applaud the president when he wanted to save American lives by bringing them home in one piece? John Dowd. Woo! That's a smackdown. That is an absolutely huge smackdown from one Marine to another. And I will say this, Mattis didn't kill Soleimani. And I know some people are going to not like this, and I'm going to get trolled for it. He didn't kill Soleimani because Soleimani kept the war going. Qassem Soleimani kept the forever war going, which fattens the pockets and fills the stomachs of Mattis's friends in the military-industrial complex, whether they work for the government or they are defense contractors. Laura, tell them, we don't know defense contractors. We know one with a theater in his house. They don't want to ever end war. He's the only one that we know that's voting for Donald Trump. He knows it'll hurt his own wallet. The guy just built a mansion in beautiful Maryland, close enough to D.C., close enough to Northern Virginia, but he didn't want to be a part of it. He wanted to live in a rich neighborhood, so he built this giant mansion, complete with theater, And he's the only one on the block who voted for Donald Trump and will vote for him again. He's the only one voting against his own financial interest. Why? Because he was a soldier once. He doesn't want the forever war to continue, but I'll tell you what, he damn sure knows General Mattis and others like him and people he works with. They want war to continue forever. The public position on why they did not kill Qasem Soleimani is that they were afraid that the retribution would be too much. All of the intel forever said that he was the head of the snake. He planned things himself. He had carried them out himself. He did not like to delegate the position of instructing Shia militias. He basically talked to them all one-on-one. That's how he killed them. He insisted on going to Iraq to talk to them himself. And that's how we caught him. He wasn't ever hard to kill. People knew where he was. We knew where he was. These are warmongers. The only thing General Mattis ever wants the country united behind is forever war that makes him rich and makes the rest of us strung out on heroin. Cheap heroin from Afghanistan. General Mattis proved what a tiny little man he is. A tiny little man. It has been quiet over there, hasn't it? The mullahs are in deep trouble. Another thing Donald Trump did that nobody else was willing to do was basically get rid of the waivers that allowed the Iranian exported oil to go to allies and people who were supposedly signed on to sanctions. He decimated them economically. All they had left was Soleimani. And like Dowd said, they were a one-horse sleigh and he blew up the horse. A lot of these people, and I've heard, I'm not a Rush listener, but I've heard Rush say this a lot, and I agree with it. I think, like, if you take Don King's take, fascinating guy if you ever talk to him, seriously, I'm not kidding. If you ever take Don King's take and mix it with like Rush Limbaugh on why these people hate Donald Trump so much, I think they pretty much got it together. They hate Donald Trump because this is a system that's built to benefit him, and he turned on them for you. He did it for you. For an everyday American who doesn't have a fat wallet and a big microphone. You may agree or disagree with his policy, but that is what his intentions were. And they feel betrayed. They absolutely feel betrayed, and they want to make an example of him to tell the elite class, don't ever try this again. If any of you ever had it in your head to do something similar and not toe the line and threaten our system that we've built for ourselves and threaten the status quo that we put together and perpetuate for ourselves, this is what will happen to you. That's number one. And number two, that's the Don King end of it, by the way. The Rush end of it is they can't allow this guy who's an outsider and with no political experience come out of nowhere and fix problems that they have been unable to fix or unwilling to fix for decades. Decades. That is what this is all about. I think Jim Dowd nailed it. Maybe your real problem, Mad Dog, is that you didn't have the courage to do half this crap. That you failed and he didn't. That you want perpetual, forever, never-ending war and he doesn't. That you don't mind that it went from 180 metric tons of opium exported before the invasion to 9,000 that are poisoning our children, poisoning our veterans, poisoning our fathers who don't have jobs. You don't mind that. He does. Maybe that's your real problem. Man, you turned out to be a little turd of a man. I don't care how many stars you got on you. Pretty damn pathetic. You had no problem when Barack Obama went out and divided the country before he knew the facts, when he said if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon. When he went after the Massachusetts police before he knew the facts. When he helped perpetuate the lie, hands up, don't shoot, that gave birth to the Black Lives Matter movement. You didn't find that divisive when Ferguson burned for a lie? What a little man you turned out to be. All right, let me take a look at some of these other questions that I might have missed. I hit the hydrochloroquine. Yep. Which one are we talking about, Madam Producer? I hit the hydrochloroquine study question. Ooh, that's a good one by Trevor. Ooh, let me pop this up because we are running out. That's a good one. Bang. Will either candidate get a traditional convention bump this year? That's a good question. If there was ever a year, Trevor, that there would be no bump, it would be this year because remarkably, the polling hasn't really shifted that much, right? So Biden's got a national edge. The states, he's got an edge supposedly in, but the voting just does not seem to bear that out. It just doesn't. And it depends which polling firms you're looking at. Some of them don't give Biden that much of an edge. HarrisX, Change, these are polling firms that did relatively well against the odds in 2018 and against mainstream polling. And Change being new, so they have no other track record. So, be cautious about that, about using them to get your hopes up. But Harris, the people who run it, they've been around for a while. They did very well at the state level. They show a competitive race when they release their polling. TIP IBD, which has done national polling for years, they too show a very competitive race. I suspect there will be some bump, but it depends on how these conventions go. There won't be look, Democrats are at a real disadvantage in one respect, which is that they get the help of Hollywood and everything to put on productions. If you didn't go to the DNC in 2016, you would not have known that there were thousands and thousands and thousands of people outside, protesting Hillary Clinton's phony nomination, which they view to be robbed from Bernie Sanders. And no matter what you say, even though personally I don't think Bernie was robbed this time, not in the same sense. What happened is they all just got together in back rooms, smoke-filled rooms, and they screwed him by uniting. Okay, but let me just wrap up this one. I'll get the Jimmy's and we'll wrap it for the weekend. But I suspect this bump could be a little bit smaller just because, the battle lines are drawn. It does still depend, though, how these conventions actually, go forward, whether or not they'll be more traditional or not. All right. You're welcome, Madam Producer. All right. So Jimmy wants to know, how do we categorize the WOW counties in the Metro Burb category? And he's talking about, and can we expect a show on New England in the future? Just for you, Jimmy, because I love that question on New England. We will do one next week on New England. All right. I will try I had something else planned for Monday, but I will try to do so maybe on Monday. If not, I'll definitely do it sooner rather than later. The Bow Wow, which is Wisconsin. All right. Those are those swinging counties. If you are a historical person, then you would look at it and you would say Republicans are due for a swing because they never typically, they don't like to vote in secession. So the independents, there are a lot of them there. They swing. They are very much like a pendulum and they like to swing back and forth. It went Republican, and then 2018 went Democrat, and then Jim Hagedorn's special election went Republican. Then Karofsky won, the liberal won, and did very well in that area. So it's really like a tick-tock, back and forth. You can't ever count on them. Nobody ever reaches out to them and tries to bring them into the fold. Not really anyway. Not the way I would do it if I was in charge of either one of them. But if you look at it from a historical perspective, they're due to swing to Trump and Republicans overall. So that's how it goes. They literally go from election to election to election. It's crazy. It's good. Those voters are the quintessential swing vote in this country. They're not the only ones, but they're definitely one of the ones that I absolutely would say, they're right up there on the top. You are welcome. I just wanted, before we wrap this up, I just want to say, if you missed any part of the series on voter fraud in America this week, go back and check it out. We start with Nevada, then we hit Pennsylvania, then we ended with yesterday in Michigan, and we went over a little bit more today when we wrapped up the show. Being registered to vote in the United States of America is not the same thing as being eligible to vote. These agendas that the Democrats are talking about absolutely will result in people who are not eligible to vote being mailed a ballot. And it will result in the potential for wrongdoers to fill them in. And that's it. And I tried, I did my level best this week, all right, to try to show you that the media is lying to you. And I will renew my challenge to any one of those hacks. Prove me wrong. Show me. Let's debate it. But you won't. Next week, we're going to have Robert Barnes on. I got to figure out. We're going to have Robert Barnes on to talk about some of the legal stuff and the history of civil rights and how he himself has even been involved in a lot of these cases. All right. So that's going to be cool. And there'll be a lot of other stuff. And we will get to the New England. I think that's actually a great way to start the week. So I may just change direction for Jimmy. And it depends. We may do Connecticut either Monday or Tuesday. All right. But either way, don't forget, before you guys bounce up out of here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Do not forget to like the page, People's Pundit Daily, on Facebook. Ultimately, the best way to support the show is to subscribe to PPD. We implore you to do so. We love you for it. That's how we're able to do what we are able to do. You can do so by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. I got a comment the other day about not being alerted for the show. If you're a subscriber on YouTube, don't forget to hit that little notification bell. But we're going to start sending out emails to you guys anyway to remind you in the morning, all right? Or if you're on the list. So go to People's Pundit Daily, look at the newsletter list, subscribe to the Inside the Numbers newsletter, and we'll give you reminders and recaps. That's basically what it's going to be. All right? It is Friday, June 5th. You guys were watching Inside the Numbers. Thanks for doing so. Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am the People's Pundit, Rich Paris. Follow me on Twitter right there at Peoples_Pundit. Be safe, be healthy, and we'll see you back on Monday. Love you all. Thanks for watching.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a knife, to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker.